don't allow yourself the excuse. Is it possible that if you did remove all your excuses, that you might actually be able to look in the mirror and see who you really are? And maybe we're not meant to look in the mirror and be happy with who we are if we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. There's a connection between confidence and reality. And there's also a connection between ego and a perceived reality that's not actually there. Some people are egotistical, and that's not the same thing as confident. A confident person doesn't have to prove they're confident. A confident person doesn't put anybody else down because they know what it takes to move through life the way you would if you were really living your life, which means you're going to be afraid. You're going to have to conquer those fears. You're going to be failing. You're going to have to fail enough times before you succeed. You're going to be doing things you don't know how to do. You're going to need to ask for help. You're going to need to be embarrassed. You're going to need to admit your vulnerabilities. Without doing any of these things, if you act confident, you're just faking it. You're basically being egotistical, and that's a severely different thing, especially in the world we live in today with social media. There's so many people on social media that literally give you reasons why you are the way you are, excuses for mental illness, for example. In other words, if you have this, that's why you're behaving the way you're behaving. And people look for the reason. Why am I behaving this way? They seek out somebody making a video about their behavior so that then they can just sit comfortably with the idea that they are broken because. And you get these comment warriors that come out whenever you try to tell people that you should really have more faith in yourself, more hope that you can be different if you only would change your actions, change your day-to-day, change the way you think, which comes from actions. You know, thinking differently on a day-to-day basis comes from absolutely changing behaviors. I have an example of this in my own life where for a long, long time, and even still, I feel like I fight having a normal schedule. Like my body fights it. It doesn't want to be awake during normal hours. It wants to work the hours no one's awake. For some reason, it's like I'm a nocturnal vampire that thinks, and this is what I realized, is I realized I was telling myself, I work better at night. I'm tired during the day, so I should sleep during the day and work at night. I think over enough time of doing that, you basically create the notion and enforce it that you are somehow different than everybody else, and there's no hope for you to be someone that can work normal hours, for example. It's like we tell ourselves a story that we believe because we keep telling it. And that's a big reason why if you are always telling yourself you're a loser or you're a failure or you're never going to win or other people are lucky and I'm never going to get lucky, if you always tell yourself that, that becomes the story. It becomes true. You can't avoid hearing that internally. You know, you hear that, you hear anything enough, you will start to believe it. That's why being around people who are miserable makes other people miserable. Because if you hear somebody just wallowing in misery, always complaining about everything and never feeling like they can make their life better, that will absolutely translate to you at some point, either being miserable, being fed up with hearing that, but also just you may actually start to tell yourself the same thing. That's why they tell you, you know, if you hang around with 4 people who are going nowhere, you're going to be the 5th going nowhere. This reminds me of a story, too, about Quentin Tarantino. You know, Quentin Tarantino started with absolutely nothing. I mean, working in a video store, I believe. And before that, you know, I think he was working at a pizza place or something. But the point is, he didn't start with the ability to be as amazing as a script writer as he was, and he wasn't like living his dream from jump. And anybody who's out there who thinks that Quentin in any way, shape, or form sucks, I want to see what they're doing. What are they doing with their day-to-day life where they're allowed in their mind to hate on somebody who's accomplished so much, who also believes in what they do to such a high degree, who's loves what he does, studies it. And like, if there's ever a person who doesn't ever stop working because he loves his work, it's him. So I just don't understand how anybody could hate on somebody like that and not be that in their own life. It just doesn't make any sense. Because if you were that in your own life, you wouldn't be hating on somebody like that. When Quentin Tarantino decided he was going to change his whole life, he first laid out, I mean, he said this in an interview, which it was great to hear. He basically laid out all the things he's doing wrong. He did this in like one night when he was fed up with his life and where it was going, because it was going nowhere. He laid out everything he was doing wrong in his life. And then he spent the last couple hours of the night trying to figure out how he could change and actually improve the path and the trajectory that he was on. So for hours and hours and hours, he spent owning up to all his mistakes. He had to find out, like really shine a light on what they were just to be able to fix himself, to then be able to come up with some solutions on how he's going to act different to create a different result. Act differently if you want a different result. And this applies to anything. No matter what you're trying to do in life, be willing to take on more fear. All the times you're afraid, take on the fear and then fight it. Because if you don't fight it, it will just hold you back. The idea of thinking we're never ready, it's a fear-based mindset 1000%. The fear delays you. Delay is another form of failure. Waiting is another form of failure. The right thing to do is never wait. You move forward. You keep moving forward. Because what I'm talking about is something that should change every day going forward, which will absolutely change your life if you would only do this basic, simple thing. When you say to yourself, I want to do this, but I'm not ready, you have to negate that thought, and it needs to become a different thought. I want to do this, and I'm not ready, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to do it anyway, no matter what happens, no matter what it turns out like, no matter how many times I fail, it won't kill me. I won't be done after this. If I get embarrassed, it's not going to be the end. If people say it sucks, I know those are only a handful of people who are just, like I said, get pleasure out of other people's misery. They get pleasure out of it, and that's who they are. So they want to put nonsense into the world to make themselves feel better. And ignore them. And once you and any voices in your head, anytime you tell yourself, man, I'm such an idiot, I can't believe I did, you have to change that to, I'm going to learn from this mistake. Albert Einstein's famously quoted saying, somebody asked him, it's like, how did you feel when you failed 1,000 times? You're trying to, create the light bulb. Like, how did you feel? And I believe his quote was something to the effect of, I'm paraphrasing here, but I didn't fail 1,000 times. I just found 1,000 ways that don't work, which allowed me to get to the way that did work. And if I didn't fail 1,000 times, I would have never gotten there. So we all need to be reminded of this from time to time. It slips away because the natural human instinct is to do nothing. The easy thing to do is never the right thing to do. It's always the hard thing. The thing your body doesn't want to do because it's too hard is the right thing. You're sitting there, not working out, not eating right because it's easier. It's easier to do nothing. You're sitting there not being afraid, not doing something no matter what the result, because people may hate it or whatever. That's in your mind. And instead, the hard thing would be face your fear, put it out there, finish the thing you're working on, move on to the next thing, and just rinse, repeat. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. That's the only way to put who you are into the world. Creatively, you're going to have to fight that every single time you try to do anything. You're going to have to fight that. And some people have more balls than others, bottom line. That's why when you say to yourself, oh man, they got lucky and I never got lucky. No, look in the mirror. You know what it really is? They were willing to be afraid. They got more balls. So you want to be upset. Be upset you don't have as much cojones. Be upset that you spent a lot of time in your life dwelling in the I'm almost ready, I'll do it later, I will, as soon as I feel strong enough, as soon as I feel, like my work is good enough, I'll put it out. Just realize that everything is just an excuse, and stop giving yourself an excuse. Don't look for excuses with mental illness. Don't look for we're all mentally ill. I hate to break it to you, all of us. Anybody who decides that they're going to live in this, that they're going to wake up every day and do something like create art or like where there's no right answer, there's no right or wrong. And we're painters of audio. And as soon as you decide to do that, you're probably a little mentally ill. All right. Now, that doesn't mean that you're messed up. What it means is you have to fix yourself in the areas that you are messed up, which will allow the rest of you to actually shine through and get to people. You'll actually take a step forward when you take the parts of you that are untenable and deal with them. You have to. I've mentioned before, I have a kind of an OCD thing going where I insist on like checking door locks. I insist on like double checking when I print a mix. Like I run out the clock on my own life by taking longer than I need to accomplish things. I fight it all the time, which is a reason why I actually get stuff done. But that doesn't mean that I'm not getting as much done as I could be. Or it doesn't mean I'm getting as much done as I could be. I could be getting way more done. If only I would stop with this nonsense of checking the stuff over and over, it's really, and I've said this before, but it's a symptom of not trusting myself. It's a symptom of thinking the worst about me, myself, and about my abilities. It's doubting myself. It's making it where I can't trust my own eyes is really what I think when I look at something and I got to check it 3-4 times. I'm thinking to myself, did I really see that? Can I really trust myself? You're doing the same thing to yourself every single time you don't trust yourself. Every time you think you could do it better, that's a fine thought. But every time you hold back until you are good enough, you're already good enough. You're already good enough to move and take a step forward, which will then allow you to take another step forward. And pretty soon you'll get to the door that you'll be able to open and walk through. But if you stay where you are and you keep doubting yourself, you're just running out the clock on the amount of time you have to take those steps to the door, and you'll never get there. You're on an escalator going backwards, and you're trying to walk up a down escalator. That's what's happening. So you got to move fast enough where the thing doesn't just carry you back down to where you started. You have to walk faster. You have to not run out the clock on your own life. You have to trust yourself. You have to also not give anything about what anyone says or the amount of likes or the amount of views or anything. Put yourself into the world without a care of that in the entire world. Because if you do, now all of a sudden, you're actually living without the need for somebody to give you the dopamine rush to prop you up because they hit like a certain amount of times they saw it or viewed it or what. Like you're actually living the life you want regardless of that. I had an amazing psychologist tell me something once that it sticks with me forever. They said, the mountain climber who climbs mountains every day, is he doing it for the likes? Because forget about social media and the people that might do it for that. I'm talking about the guy who loves to climb mountains, climbs it because he loves it. Doesn't matter how many people are staring at him, watching him. He's not videotaping it. He loves to rock climb. It's dangerous. Sure, there's fear. He swallows it, conquers it, moves forward. And he loves it, so he doesn't care who watches. It's not about that. He does it for him. You got to do what you want to do in this world for you. Focus on that. You will have put your work out there. At least you can point to it and say, this is who I am, because you're not the things you say you are. You're only the things you actually do. That's what makes you. Evan Jaffe, Custom Cut Studios. You guys got this. Take it easy.